This is a series of fights between Sparrow and Shay, and so we kind of came in right as the fight was starting on that last one, and these two are having some really nice, clean fights along the way. Really good opportunities for presses and responses. Um, okay, we're seeing just on these first couple fights that Sparrow has been the aggressor in a lot of ways. So coming back to the very first fight, you can tell when someone is on the offense and on the defensive a lot by their stance and how their where their sword is and everything. Like this is a very common thing that I've brought up in the last couple of videos is assessing your opponent and looking at some key pieces of details that give you a lot more data than other elements. You want to get as much as you can. And so if you're looking at your fellow fighters, if you're watching this fight, what we're seeing here is Shay has a very kind of solid stance. Her feet are not super wide apart. The knee is bent. The back is straight. The arm is down and out. The sword is up in a high guard for that defensive potential. The sword is, you can actually see it's kind of out in front of her rather than maybe out to the side. Her offhand is up and close to her face and close to her chin. So there's a lot of defense all right here. You've kind of, this is the primary space. You'd have to be crazy to go for the legs. So there's this. So Shay is protecting the most likely targets right now, and has that defensive mindset. Whereas Sparrow, with her footwork moving, her dagger is kind of out in front of her, but it's not really like it's there to defend, but you can tell that it's not like really locked into that defense. Her sword is down and parallel with the ground, with it pointing, obviously forward, bringing it closer to Shay. Like this is the signs of someone who's on the offensive. And so just where their sword is, where their stance is, where targets are they potentially looking for, gives you that clue on how you're going to respond. So in this case, Shay is saying, I'm going to be defensive. I'm going to let Sparrow come in and I'm going to react and return, versus Sparrow wants to kind of bypass and get in, but with it and defend against that return. So we come in. Shay stops the press by tapping Sparrow's blade, and then reaches out. So like this is a classic thing when someone is in that defensive mindset, is I'm going to address the blade and I'm going to go in. That's that parry riposte mindset. So I'm going to come in, strike, and then immediately go in when the blade is addressed. Sparrow's response is, okay, you've done that to me. I'm going to now use my dagger to try to block that, which is going to keep my sword free, and I'm going to go in for the opening that you've just created by striking at me. Unfortunately, I think Sparrow got hit first, but her dagger came in to get the block, but it was a little slow. It was a little too far too far away to catch the blade. It would have been nice to kind of catch it at this part of the blade rather than at the mezzo, the foible, so then you could redirect it away sooner. But keeping that blade free gave her that nice target. She knew where that opening was going to be. So really good aim. It just, if the dagger was a little bit quicker or caught this blade a little bit sooner, she might have been able to bat it away before getting that double kill. All right. Same kind of approach. The one thing that I really wanted to highlight on this fight was, let's go back. Again, we kind of see the same thing. Shay's defensive minded, Sparrow is offensive minded. Okay. But I wanted to show you, watch Shay's hand right here. She's going to perform a 3 block up, but it's going to lend itself to that parry riposte in a kind of a different way. So you can see here, Shay comes in, tries to tap, but misses. She went down too soon, and you can see just there that she actually hits the very tip of Sparrow's sword, and it goes past, right? So now we can see that Shay's here rather than on top like it was on the other fight. Okay, so she's going to come up and use the false edge, the top edge of her sword, to push Sparrow's blade up while she retreats. and voids to kind of be careful of that incoming dagger, right? So she's pushing, pushing, pushing. So it's not a true 3 block, right? It's not a true 3 block because a 3 block would have been Sparrow's sword on the outside. But using that false edge, right, she's able to push it up and combine it with her void to avoid that thing. But the nice thing about it is if you watch Shay's Quillians, they're vertical right now. And as they move up, she's going to use that false edge and she's going to twist right there, twist her hilt so that it's horizontal. And what she's trying to do is hinge around the strike and get that hinge motion into a shot. Unfortunately, Sparrow closed distance enough that it hit her shoulder rather than her face. But that kind of sword work with the hand and the ability to adapt from a little flub up that happened down here meant that Shay was able to stay alive and still get a return as they're going through it. Gets the offhand in, Sparrow gets the dagger in, but Sparrow was able to get the shot in on Shay's face before she was able to kind of get it. Okay. Okay, let's just backtrack a little bit on that one. Okay, let's see where everything was happening. Okay, so we're in this fight. We're seeing a pattern. We're seeing a pattern so far. Sparrow's sword is down low. This is making it a prime target for this downward bat, this tap down. So for Sparrow to kind of avoid that, we need to make sure that this stays free. Perhaps a disengage out to the side away, pulling it up can be helpful. Going into a refuse stance where the dagger is leading can be helpful. But right now the pattern is that Shay's tapping down. Okay. Tap down again, and then retreat. But then Sparrow's got this nice rising shot at those moments. I think okay, she's tapping down. I would love to see if she's going to use that tap down and then she's kind of disengaged up and around. You can see that she got tapped down, her tip came out, and then she's going to kind of do a little bit of a 3 block up and around. Very similar to what Shay was just doing in the last fight. And you can see she's trying to get around Shay's blade by using the false edge of her sword. And you can see that it just kind of lays on Shay's head. It doesn't actually get point in. Okay. And Sparrow has her dagger to keep Shay's blade at bay. Right. We're trying to find our way in here. So Sparrow is trying to pull her sword out and away, but Shay's offhand is in there to push it, keep it from coming back in. Throws the shot. Gets back in here to block it away. Okay. I believe this is where the kill happens. Okay. So we're having a lot of tussling and back and forth and trying to get our swords free into a position. And I really appreciate what Shay's doing to keep her sword kind of always coming back to the middle, keeping her point on line. Sparrow is doing great to push all of Shay's stuff out to the side, using that footwork to block and kind of push things away. Shay is doing a really good job defending her center line with her offhand end there. But this is where we get that nice 8 block to push it away. As Sparrow pulls her sword back, Shay's sword goes from that 8 block right here, and it's going to come up in. Okay, and that's where we get the kill. Shay's defending against that dagger. That sword is out there. Right. So overall, I think that's a really good example of, oh boy, sorry about that, of defending that center line, but also keeping your sword free, and keeping the point online. The concept of keeping your point online is that no matter where you are in the fight, the more often that you can point your sword at your opponent, the better off you are. Always bringing it back if your sword goes offline. Okay, another great example of kind of that concept. Okay, okay. Sparrow's offensive. She's using her void, using her feet and her offhand. Okay, draws it in. She wants her sword free. You can see Shay's sword is actually caught. She's got Sparrow's sword here and the dagger here, kind of pinching it down. So Shay wants that free. She pulls it back, but she keeps her offhand up and there, and then immediately brings her sword back online for that kill. Freeing your sword is another great skill to develop, to say, oh, I am trapped right here. Sparrow did a wonderful job trapping that. She's been doing fantastic with getting her dagger involved in defending her head. But Shay says, nope, I'm not going to keep fighting this way. I need that free sword. So, with the twist of the torso, even though she's not changing her footwork, she's pulled her sword free and away. And I love that Shay pulled it all the way back. It put her body kind of between her and Sparrow, because that just means the sword is completely free. And now, in the moment, her sword is free. Sparrow's all bound up here, and very quickly Shay can bring it back online and get a free shot in to land that kill. Wonderfully done. Okay. Yeah, we got the arm. No, nothing happened. Okay, kill on Shay. Just watching for a few more things. Let's see. Okay, we'll watch that one. We couldn't quite see the kill, but Shay indicated she got hit in the chest. All right. So we've been seeing again more of that defensive mindset, offensive mindset. Like Sparrow is leading these fights. We come in. This time Sparrow changes with a slip step. She puts her back foot forward, goes into a refuse stance, and now her dagger is leading, which I think helps get things more engaged there. And I think this is what really, because remember we've been seeing this pattern. Shay taps down, takes the sword out, the dagger is too far gone to really do anything, and then footwork can come in. But by switching to this refuse stance, when that sword comes down from Shay, you can see that the sword has now been pulled back a little bit, the dagger has moved forward, but now that they're kind of on equal planes, so now you don't have this big long sword sticking out of the way for an easy kind of tap down. So Shay taps down but misses everything. Right? This then she has to respond, and she gets her offhand up there. Okay, but you got the dagger coming in, and we can see that Sparrow has landed the shot because the offhand didn't push it off far enough. So I think that was a really clever tactic from Sparrow to move into that refuse stance, and it broke the pattern and worked for something that hasn't been working the first couple fights. Again, back to refused. We lost the arm, and we get the kill. Got it back to refused. Got the kill and a double. It looks like a double again. Okay, we're in refuse now, so the tap isn't going to work. Okay, but this is where we've got to be very careful. Shay has now moved much more aggressively. Her sword is way further out, which means we've got to be able to address the blade. You can actually see a really beautiful disengage. So Sparrow has her dagger out. She's almost, I'm pretty sure I'd be willing to bet that Shay's baiting this move. We've now seen Sparrow step in, try to swat at the sword with her dagger while she moves in with the sword. So now she's getting a little bit baited. So Shay's going to step in, and then you're going to see this nice little disengage at the same time that the dagger comes down. Shay's sword moves out and away. There it goes. So just nice timed move, and then up into that free space that's kind of being left behind, up and around the wrist. Okay, so now Sparrow's momentum of the dagger is moving down. Shay's sword is moving up, and having that more forward guard means that it's just a little flick of the wrist. The tip is already pretty close, and with an opponent who's driving forward, they almost just walk into the blade, which is what Sparrow does, right? The challenge is that because of the timing of it and the focus of trying to get that kill, Sparrow's sword is completely underdressed, which means that offhand has to kind of be engaged, ready to go, which it does. But by the time it does get engaged, because the attention is on getting that kill, Sparrow's sword comes in, and you can see that Shay's finger, offhand actually kind of misses that sword, and so she gets that kill as well. So we end up with that double. More back, refused, defensive. There he goes, drive. This is a cautionary tale for all those who are addressing someone who's waiting for you to approach. Again, we're seeing this pattern. Shay's now had 6 or 7 fights to watch Sparrow make that press. She's been able to see where her sword is, where her dagger is, every single time they've been right here, which means this is open. And Shay didn't even have to kind of step with anything. It's just a well-timed, okay, I'm going to just stick my sword out and you're going to walk into it. Now, Sparrow has the right idea to have her dagger here and take the blade, but again, with the combination of forward movement and catching the blade way down here in the fort means that by the time contact is made, Shay's sword is already making contact with your face. Right? And that time Shay was able to get her offhand down to defend against that incoming strike. So you can see she just catches the tip, bats it down, and then swoop back into position. So we've always got to be able to address that blade, know where it's coming from, what the target is. Okay, this is a very different fight. I think some lessons have been learned. I think some things are clicking a little bit more. Okay, so pattern would say Sparrow's going to leap forward, and then we're going to have a bit of an exchange. So it's just a step in versus a full rush, which I think is good. But you can see the reaction that's been set. Sparrow steps, Shay's sword goes down, but Sparrow stops. This prevents the same thing from happening. Okay, and now we get Shay having an extra moment to then respond. She's going to go for the dagger, but I think this is again a well-timed action to say, okay, my opponent has just extended. It's now my turn, and my sword is free. So Sparrow responds with a strike. Shay comes in with the offhand and is moving in. Unfortunately, we're really worried right now because Shay's sword is free. The dagger is way back here, and we got this open target of Sparrow's torso. But you can see here that Shay is not extending her arm, right? She's breaking her shot because she knows Sparrow is on the move, so there's no need to throw that shot. But watch Sparrow's footwork, okay? So she's coming in, and sees that happening, that her rush has kind of been defeated. And you would think that her footwork is going to continue on to here, but it actually stops. Like, it's just it just stops. She catches herself, and the fact that Shay is waiting for that means she's caught it. And now all Shay needs to do is kind of extend. But her thought was, Sparrow's going to run into my sword, so I'm not going to do that. And that gives Sparrow time to get the dagger engaged. Right now we're back again to my sword is captured. Sparrow's sword is captured. Who's going to free their sword first? Shay is going to pull her sword back with the twist over the torso. But then so is Sparrow. She's going to get her sword free. So now we've got a little bit of panic. All right, we're going to retreat again. And this is really well done because Sparrow is retreating, Shay is retreating, but neither one of them have lowered their guard. This keeps both of them alive from a fading shot. Sparrow keeps the press as Shay is retreating. Shay is on her guard, but Sparrow's not rushing too deep into anything, which is really good. Keeps her dagger up to catch it. They have a bit back and forth exchange. Offhand to dagger. Back and forth. Offhand to dagger. It's lovely stuff. They were set with their guards up, except for Shay's had her offhand, so she's kind of waiting for it. And then Shay presses. I love how Shay does this, is that it's coming in and addressing, this is the main threat, so she's going to come in and address it and hope to disengage around. And you can see Shay's target is not going in for the kill. She's trying to eliminate the legs on Sparrow. So after that block, she's hoping to just reach out and stay far enough away that her dagger can't come into play. You can see how she's leaning back. She's trying to use the range of her sword to get those leg shots while staying away from that dagger, right? So she does. She gets that leg shot, but unfortunately, Sparrow was able to reach out just enough with her dagger, right? You see that lean in, and Shay got just close enough. So wonderful execution on both sides. Okay, I think this is one of the last fights. Okay. Comes in. This is where I think we finally got that dagger engaged at just the right way. Steps in. This is amazing addressing the blade. Caught it on Shay's foible, the weakest part of her blade. Her sword is free. Shay's in that defensive mindset, but now she can't. You can see she attempted to push down with that block, right? But again, you can watch the bend. We're following this pattern. These series of fights have been nothing but patterns, right? So you can see the fact that Sparrow was able to get her sword up and into Shay's blade at the foible. When the shot is coming down low, Shay has been responding with a tap down, right? But that dagger is there preventing. So watch the bend on this blade. It's a sign. That's a terrible line. It's a sign that Shay is still attempting to do that tap down, right? So just okay. There's the bend, or there's the straight. Look at that bend. Okay, we've got this nice curve now as she's trying to push down, but Sparrow's dagger is preventing it. And that offhand came down just a little too late for that shot to come in. So overall, these were beautiful fights, and I loved being able to see. Yes, there was a pattern developed. There was a series of the same shots were coming from Sparrow, the same reactions were coming from Shay, but how they reacted to each one at different times kind of allowed us to see the differences on how we can address things, when we can, what worked, what didn't work, when would we use this, when would be really effective, all those kind of things. So I would love to see more of that, um, between not only Shay and Sparrow, but also others, as we're learning how to address someone who's defensively minded, someone who's pushing in for the rush. How do we address the blade? How do we bring our point back online? All those kind of things that we saw in these wonderful fights.